So, hello, Chuck. Good morning to Hawaii.
Aloha. Aloha.
Aloha. How are you doing? How's your Sunday morning going?
It looks bright. Looks like it's going to be a great day. Just nothing very pressing today. I'm heading out to feed the cats and the chickens and then hang out with my wife, just kind of enjoying ourselves. And
Happy Sunday. Yeah, that's
happy
how it
Sunday.
should be.
Yeah.
So what led you actually to Hawaii? Because I know that you are from the United States. How come that you love surfing? That's why you moved there, or what was the reason?
No, it's like when I was finishing up my master's degree in Pittsburgh, I felt the call to go to Hawaii, but I went to California first, finished my doctorate, but that's call that was a strong pull. And when I first got off the plane, and it's interesting, coming down the gangway, I could smell flowers, as I came down the gangway, and I it felt like I was home for the first time since I was a child.
Wow.
So, and I had a number of past life memories, some very vivid, actually, of being here, and of being here in Hawaii with Lindsay as best friends. And
wow, really,
like
that's sweet, very sweet. So talking about Lancy as well. Oh, sorry.
The Aloha spirit here, it's so rich.
Yeah.
It's so rich, and of course people find what they're looking for, but to me it's the home. They used to say in old metaphysical literature, spiritual literature, that this was the heart chakra of the planet.
Wow.
So
what does aloha mean actually?
well, it means a lot of things. It means hello, goodbye. It means, depending on the tone of voice, hello, good looking, aloha. But it also means like, I see the ha in you. I see the spirit in you. So in that sense, it's the recognition. My kahuna taught me that, from her mother, that when you look at someone, but you see the God spirit in them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
that's beautiful.
It's always been dear to me.
A good place for you and Lancy.
Yeah.
So
like, it's the same energy.
Yeah. And talking about Lancy, and well, we all know that you are the master of relationships. Meanwhile, do you have kind of I don't know, some tips, or are there some specialties for heading to a happy relationship?
Sure.
I'm listening.
The first thing, I think the most important thing is that you love your partner. Just fully love them. It's like no matter what they're doing or saying, even if it's anything negative, you get through it unscathed and still, loving them. It's just the only primary relationship. All the rest is our ego. And so it brings up problems, it brings up separation, it brings up distance, but your connection with them, that's the most important thing. And then that you always have faith in them, because otherwise, faithlessness has all kinds of complications, all kinds of problems and fears and control and things like this. But you don't trust them, you don't trust yourself, you don't trust heaven. So anyhow, those are the two main things I would say, is just, it's that putting that trust, because it's like if you have hidden trust issues, you have hidden lack of love issues. If you don't trust, you don't love. And so a lot of us have histories coming from our families where we were wounded. And these are places where we were, actually, we were faithless if you get to the bottom of the subconscious. And then there's guilt, but it looks like blame. Look what they did to me. They victimized me. And it's all around our purpose, what we're called to do in this life, what major soul lessons we're called to learn. And of course, mom and dad and siblings and partners figure into that. These are the main soul lessons we've come to learn. And if we don't learn them, we feel heartbroken, we feel guilty, we feel vengeful, we feel withdrawn, and therefore in sacrifice. And that doesn't work. A relationship is the best way to find out all the roles you have, all the places of sacrifice that started when you were a kid. Some of these things are so well hidden that you couldn't find them any other way, except as you get closer with your partner, these things tend to come up. So relationship, it's a word, as I said the other night to a group of people I was working with, I said, it's a workshop. It's a learning situation, and you paid for the workshop. You might as well take it. and I ask people, like, think of your past partners. How much did you enjoy them, really? And I had answers anywhere from 20 to 60%. I said, really? 60%? You'd probably still be with them if you enjoyed them 60%. And it's like, here we are, we're with our partner, but we have all these, complaints and judgments and grievances, and that's all distance. And so, but you could just put that aside and enjoy them, just really be with them, really experience them. And of course, you can get a new honeymoon from that. And then soon enough, the next layer comes up to be healed.
Sounds very easy, but I know it's work. But for that, actually, you're offering workshops talking about that and guilt. Next week, we are starting, I think, for the European time zone. Actually, it's really kind of the 2021 start. So we're starting with Innocence, the gateway to heaven or to paradise. And as far as I understand, the opposite of innocence is guilt.
Yes.
So why are we so much attracted to that?
Well, that we're attracted to it because it keeps our ego together. Our sense of identity. It's crazy, but it's our ego, our identity is built on pain and guilt. So now, if you're going to love your partner or be wholehearted, it's like that begins to dissipate the guilt. But that comes up as a problem between you and your partner. Now, do you want to feel guilty, or would you rather have your partner be the wrong one?
Yeah.
So guilt gets to be like this hot potato. You're the bad one. No, I'm not the bad one. You're the bad one. But guilt, and this is what I found psychologically, guilt is a total illusion. It's not an illusion that we have it. Everybody has it. But it's not true. Like, if you get down to a full understanding of what's going on, it's like the guilt melts away. Back in the 70s, as I was beginning to learn and heal myself, and of course work with so many people, what I found is we get down to these terrible situations where people felt so much guilt, they actually started a whole pattern of crucifixion. So last week I was working with another group of people, and there's one fella, he had crosses, he had crucifixions since he was in the womb. And people are psychologically active, and so there were all these little baby crosses as a child, and then because it starts a pattern. And where you have guilt, you punish yourself. If we had cleared all the guilt in the world, there would be no problems in the world. There would be no health issues. There'd be no collective issues. There'd be no economic issues. It would be paradise. It would be back to the garden. And there would be no grievances. There would be no fights, because judgments, which is the cause of the suffering in the world. It's like judgment and grievances and complaints, all of that comes out of our own guilt. It's crazy. Back in the 70s, as I found a way into the subconscious, first with hypnosis, and then within a year developing my own method using the intuition, I learned so many things that blew my mind. So that's why I started making a new model of how to work with people. You know, basically a healing path, so your life gets happier, and as we say in Hawaii, mo better. And it just, you have more wholeness, you have more expansiveness, which is a sense of joy and happiness as you feel expanded instead of deflated or inflated to hide where we don't feel good about ourselves. So getting rid of guilt is so crucial. It was such a major theme in my life growing up Catholic. And by 7 years old, I felt I was going to hell. And so I personally had to get to, and so people, when they feel that bad, what they do is that they either become super good or they become super bad. And then everything in between. I was a super good boy until
really,
later, of course, you know, and then but I found this way into the subconscious, really easy way. And you know, we think we don't like what's going on, but in the subconscious, it's a much different story. And so it's getting those two minds together. It's getting the hidden mind up into the light, so the light dissipates it and shows that it's an illusion. So I became an expert at pulling back the covers. Just ask my wife.
So
and I said, you know, over the years, it's not that all of these things I've learned that makes me an expert on relationships or on the mind. It's that my wife still loves me. It's the acid test.
So, well, what I know or what I have seen and read, Lancy is, of course, brings this mystical path into the work of psychology of vision, and you are the psychologist. Have you always been spiritual as well, or was this a combination with Lancy, or was there suddenly, I don't know, an epiphany for you? How did this you know, this work come together?
It was probably, for me, it was probably always there as a theme. As a child, it showed up as me being religious. Later, you know, as I kind of judged religion, and then I moved into metaphysics and psychic research, and that was very interesting. But that's kind of incomplete. And so I realized that actually we're all called to be spiritual, because love is spiritual, happiness is spiritual, innocence is spiritual. You know, the ego, which is the opposite, it's the principle of separation. It wants us to feel guilty because that would be a wall between us. It would be a barrier. And people feel guilty about the strangest things. I remember in 1990, I was doing a workshop in Lac Lejeune, Canada. And Lindsay and I were doing this workshop, and we had our children there, and they were very small. My father was there, and he was watching the children. But at one point, as he was coming back toward the building, the seminar building, he began to experience heart failure. So naturally, I went with him, and I said, you know, and he couldn't breathe. You know, and I said, Dad, it's okay. You're going to get through this. I know this is not the end. I've seen you beyond this. You're going to be fine. I'm right here with you. It's okay. And rode with him in the ambulance, spent the night in the hospital, that kind of thing. And then his wife came to take over, and I went back to the workshop, and I asked who felt guilty that my dad had this experience. Every single person in the room raised their hand. And they all had the craziest, most outlandish reasons to punish themselves for what happened. So, and that was all a mistake. And guilt, of course, makes you punish yourself. And it's just not the truth. It is not the truth. You bring truth into it and you bring understanding into it. And so if people feel guilty, they do two things. They withdraw, and so everything becomes sacrifice, or they attack themselves or they attack others. But they don't learn the lesson involved in the incident. So if you don't learn the lesson, your ego says, oh, you want to get over this guilt for having murdered that person? Kill somebody else.
Oh.
It's true. That's how a serial killer gets started. You know, it's like they get wounded and all that guilt. And the thing is, when we're victimized, we're also underneath it, we feel guilty. It's crazy. It's like we feel guilty, so we get ourselves punished, and then we feel bad, which is another name for guilt, for having this bad thing happen. And guilt is its own vicious circle. And it's not the truth. And when you penetrate that, when you get to the bottom of it and you have this understanding, and then forgiveness is natural, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of yourself. Where you have grievances toward other people, that's a great place where you're hiding guilt. When we judge others, we're hiding guilt, and you don't get free until you get innocent. And so it's not impossible. At the deepest level, now this goes into the unconscious area. At the deepest level, chronic guilt is an attack on God. So this moves from the deepest unconscious into the spiritual.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So the ego, to keep itself building, it gets the notion of sin out there, which is guilt you'll never get rid of. And basically what happens is that it's like somehow here at creation, there's divine love. And the ego said, no, you can change that. You don't have to go along with God's will. Here, come with me, let's separate. And each separation was a guilt, and it was a fall. It wasn't just one big fall. In the mind, there's hundreds of falls, and they were all terrible, shattered dreams. But we all did this to be, it's the old authority conflict, to be the God of our own world. You telling me what to do? Me? You talking to me? And so guilt is a weapon. It's a weapon against ourselves, but it punishes everybody else too. It's just not the truth. And so if you can give up the notion of sin, what happens is you have lessons. We teach our kids, oh, be a good boy. Except now it implies that there's bad boys. And this is a system of dualism that keeps us always feeling guilty, and the ego wins. It's like, do you want to be separated? Do you want to be lonely? Do you want to be, always have these problems? Or do you want to feel the sense of power and confidence and accomplishment and joining with people? The juicy aspect of life, the friendship, the fun, the laughter, and the love. I was working with someone this last week whose main guilt was that they had slept with their best friend's boyfriend. And I said to her, listen, do you want to feel this guilt and feel withdrawn, or do you want to remove this guilt? This was before she was married. And I said, do you want to remove this guilt and be closer to your husband and be closer to your children? Because this is a barrier between them, and you're busy punishing yourself, and you could be busy loving. And I said, and her husband was right there in this couples counseling. And I said, what would you like? Would you like your wife to be feeling guilty and punishing yourself, or loving you? And he was like, loving me. Because where you feel guilt, you block people from loving you, or you don't believe it. You don't believe you deserve it. And none of that is true. And I've worked with people who've done some of the most terrible things to other people. And they had a propulsion to do it again. Let me tell you a quick story. Back in the 70s, I was working with Marines doing drug rehab, and I came up from lunch one day up to the 3rd floor where our group was, and they said, you know, some of the sergeants came running up to me and says, "You got to go help one of your people. He's tearing up a whole room." And I go, "What?" They go, "Yeah, go talk to him." And this was a guy I had a really strong relationship with. I ran down to the end of the hall, and he's pulling down these big wooden lockers, and he's taking the mattresses off the bed and the box springs and throwing them around. And so it was a big room. I went to the other side of the room. I start pulling down the wooden lockers, taking the mattresses and throwing the box springs around. And finally, he turns around, he looks, he says, "Spezzano, what the fuck are you doing?" I go, "Well, you're my client. You know, you're in my group. So if you want to do that, I'm going to help you." So I got his attention. I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I'm going to kill the staff sergeant." I says, I said, "How come?" Now, this staff sergeant was one of the people I was supervising as group leader. He says, "Oh, he doesn't care for us at all. He just hates us. And, you know, I'm going to just kill him." And I said, "Give me 10 minutes." You know, we had a strong enough relay. I said, "Give me 10 minutes. If you're not through this in 10 minutes, I'll go help you kill him." Now, this was like one of my best friends on the floor, right? So I knew, I just had that confidence that we were going to get through it.
Wow.
And what it went back to was he had been a drug dealer in Mexico. And some guy had, at gunpoint, had robbed him and taken all of his drugs and all of his money. Now, when something like that happens in the old drug culture, if you didn't stand up for yourself, if you weren't really strong, if you didn't make a statement, you were free game, and everybody would try to kill you. So he felt it was life or death. So he got this guy and he killed him. And he got his money and his drugs back and all that other stuff. And then later, you know, series of events, and he came back, and, you know, and he was assigned to my group. And so it was this guilt of having killed someone that was driving him into this murderous rage. And when he understood that, and then we went back further to his relationship with his father, who died of a brain tumor, but began acting insanely for the last 8 months of his life and becoming very violent. And he would interpose himself between his father and his mother and take on all of that murderous rage. So as we worked through these levels, you know, and of course, in 10 minutes, it was a whole different story than killing the staff sergeant. I said to him before we start, I said, "I bet you a steak dinner," which was really big back then, you know, that I said, "I bet you a steak dinner that, you know, by the end of the time you leave here in a month, you'll like him as one of the best people on the floor." And he goes, "I'll take that bet." Yeah. Yeah, I think he's going to have to give me that steak dinner. And probably next life, it'll be all vegetables, you know, some other life, you know, so. Anyhow, that's the story. And it was just like, you get to the bottom of it, and it can go back, guilt passed down ancestrally. It's like the what they haven't completed, the lessons they haven't learned, gets passed on to us. And we promised we would free them from those karmic chains, because now it's coming up with us. And it's at such a deep level that who would guess that this was being passed on from 10 generations ago. So it's like, we promised we would save them. So there's a way to do that. And then it's coming in from past lifetimes. And even before lives. I mean, as I, you know, do this work where you have this way to find out what's inside, and it's mind-blowing. So it goes to deeper and deeper levels. And now we're facing a pandemic, which is a collective issue. All those catastrophic things with the weathers and tidal waves and volcanoes and stuff, that's collective issues. And it's up for us to heal the past wars, the past famines and plagues, the past earthquakes, and it's all trying to balance us. And if we heal collective issues, and the answer to this one is partnership, is working together. So that means working together with the people around us, but building communities and realizing that it's all one team. As Buckminster Fuller said, that visionary scientist, he said, we're all on spaceship Earth together, you know, and it's learning to work together. And he proved scientifically that if we all work together, within 10 years, the poorest person today, could you imagine the poorest person today? He said, if we all work together in 10 years, that person would be richer than the richest person today.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it's this collective working together.
Yeah.
It's like years ago, I was just like looking at the world and going, oh, WTF, you know, like what's going on? And I prayed. I said, what can help the world? And I heard the voice. And it said, an idea. And I was like, well, what idea would save the world? And he said, an idea that everybody could get behind. And I thinking of all the differences in the world, he said, what idea could everybody get behind? And it was very clear. It was, and I had, by that time I'd gotten back in this chair, and it was friends helping friends. And to realize that, you know, all the rest that isn't friendship is a mistake. It's a call for help. It's a call for love. And the thing is, when somebody around us is acting badly, what I found is that we have the gift to help them out of that. And so that's buried deep in the mind, because we're complaining like, you should have been better, you know, and you're the guilty one. But if you go down deeper past that sense of blame, you find guilt. And what did I do? That they hurt me. But it's because we weren't giving the gift we had promised at a soul level, at an unconscious level, that we would bring out to bridge to them, to help them, to save them. And so we set up all these soul lessons in our lives. And if we don't learn the lesson, we flunk the test, and there's heartbreaks and shattered dreams. And it's pretty major. I mean, at a heartbreaking level, it's like, I call it a shamanic test. If you give everything you have, you might pass it. And you reach a higher level of consciousness. But then there's mastery level tests where it feels like your whole world collapsed, like an 8-story building collapsed on top of you. And that's how bad it feels. And there's tremendous guilt in there, you know, tremendous feeling of failure. And you, every time I've traced it back, it goes back to, I was in charge of a community or a city or a world, and I failed.
Yeah.
And the only way to pass a shamanic test is heaven's help. But the ego wants to break that relationship. It uses this idea of sin to say, ha ha, God is dead, or at least it's dead for you, because you're a sinner and you're gone to hell. And, you know, that's it. People have hells inside them, personal hells, and even hell worlds. And that's all metaphor. It's all illusion. And you can get through that. And you get through that with divine love, or with, you know, a love that has that awareness.
With your help, actually.
Yeah.
What I know from, well, coming back to the workshop you are giving, if I feel a little guilt with some issues, just a tiny bit. Is there a way that you could bring me through that?
Sure.
During those 4 days, I mean, especially as well for people watching, they might think now during everything you explained with your friend as well, during such a short time frame you helped him out. So that sounds like in 4 days, a lot of miracles can happen, right?
So many miracles can happen. It can be such an adventure. It's an inner adventure. You get to know yourself and you get to love yourself more. And where that happens, there's self-forgiveness, which is one of the ways to get through guilt. But if forgiveness is the most difficult lesson to learn, self-forgiveness is the toughest of those lessons. So a lot of times I'll take people down to see where the misunderstanding or the separation began and things like this. But here's a quick method. It's like, let's say you have this little guilt. Yeah, just imagine it was an emotional fire attacking you. Okay. So now, who in your world needs your help that you would love to help?
My dad.
So do you want to keep attacking yourself or having this wall of fire, emotional fire around you, or would you step through that to help your father?
Of course, without doubting.
And so imagine yourself doing that, stepping through that, embracing your father. I promised I would save you, Dad. Here I am. We're both innocent.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because where you help someone, and it's one of the most enjoyable things in life, fulfilling things in life, where you help someone, it's like you both go into a flow. And then the ego will look for something else to make you feel bad, or to make you feel wrong, or to make somebody, or to make you feel wounded or insulted. That's the ego. When you feel insulted, that's the ego. And you can only be hurt if you feel insulted. You're doing that to me. I hate you. And that's the thing about heartbreak, is hatred comes up. Are you a hater or a lover? And where you have hatred like that, you have self-hatred. And there's all kinds of things that come from heartbreaks and victimization, like guilt. Like, we got wounded and we feel guilty. So we're just gonna, we're down and we're kicking ourselves now. It looks like it's other people, but we're using them to punish ourselves. That's what I found. But none of the guilt is true. And you can learn the lesson, and you can be much more yourself. You can be much brighter. You'd be much more called to what you promised you would do, and feel much more able to do it. And much more open to heaven helping you every step of the way. Because, it's as we ascend in happiness, as we grow, as we learn, we become more peaceful, more calm, and we become more innocent. We become more whole. And that wholeness is our happiness. It's our joy. And then when you're happy, what you want to do is you want to go tag, you're happy too. It's like you want to share it. Exactly. But when you're guilty, you just kind of either want to attack somebody or just withdraw. And that's no fun.
No, it's true. Thank you so much.
Everything is sacrifice. Yikes.
Yeah.
And it's not psychologically true. Sacrifice is a mistake built on guilt and unworthiness. As I say, anything done through sacrifice could be done without it more easily.
That is true, yeah. Thank you so much for this insight. I hope people watching have been inspired, and everybody who has a little guilt like me feels inspired to join you on Wednesday. Yeah, I will be there.
So, and where people have guilt, they punish themselves with illness and all kinds of problems. It's crazy. Not the truth, though. Not the truth.
That's true.
God, when he created us innocent. And we piled all this guilt on top of ourselves to give us a sense of identity, but not a good one. Even though we compensate and act very good and strong and nice, but it's like, as we heal ourselves, we're like, it's life. Let's enjoy it. It's
yeah, the need to share it then. Exactly. Yeah. That's the sweet thing. Yeah.
Well, you got me going this morning. I just must say.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time and this insight. It's so interesting. Really, it's a pleasure always and fun with you. Thank you so much. So I wish you a happy Sunday morning, spreading this happiness. And we'll see you on Wednesday.
Okay, see you then.
Goodbye.
Ciao bella.